Today, we'll pull back the curtain on 15 stars whose struggles with drinking became as legendary as their roles. Some turned their addictions into part of their public persona. Others lost it all behind that final glass.
Listen, you've all got to realize one thing, that I am the master of this household.
Our first name is almost synonymous with on-screen drunken humor, W.C. Fields. He famously quipped, "I never drink water. That's the stuff that rusts pipes." For Fields, that wasn't just a line. His flamboyant flask was a real-life prop, and by the 1930s, it's rumored he was putting away up to 2 quarts of whiskey a day. But behind the punchlines and that trademark red nose was a man in constant pain, dating back to an old back injury, and he self-medicated the only way he knew. The studios found ways to work around his morning shakes by scheduling him early, hoping to wrap his scenes before the tremors got too severe. In 1946, Fields passed away at 66 from an alcohol-related stomach hemorrhage. Even on his deathbed, when found reading a Bible, he joked, "I'm looking for loopholes." It's a somber reminder of how humor and heartbreak can intertwine. A screen siren with unforgettable allure, Ava Gardner captivated audiences from the 1940s onward. She soared to stardom in films like The Killers and Mogambo, but underneath her fiery persona was a woman trying to outdrink her insecurities. Ava had a string of high-profile romances, most famously with Frank Sinatra, and it's said their tumultuous relationship often revolved around late-night benders. Hollywood insiders whispered about her nightly whiskey habit, which provided liquid courage for red carpet events and helped ease her restless mind once cameras stopped rolling. When the limelight dimmed, Ava retreated to Spain and later London, seeking a quieter life but still facing health troubles amplified by decades of drinking. She passed away in 1990 at 67, leaving behind a legacy of fierce independence, unmatched charisma, and a cautionary subtext about the seductive and destructive nature of Hollywood's endless night. Next up, Errol Flynn.
The Olympic Club bunch are betting against me, aren't they? Just about $15,000 worth. That's good.
His motto, "In like Flynn," became legendary in 1940s Hollywood, reflecting both his romantic escapades and his wild lifestyle. Yet rumors say his boat parties were so boozy that insiders nicknamed his Malibu home Cirrhosis by the Sea. The real turning point arrived after a statutory rape accusation in 1942. Even though he was acquitted, Flynn's reputation took a hit, and he found solace in vodka. Studios hired handlers just to ensure he'd show up on set, often dragging him off his yacht after days-long benders. By his final years, that once athletic figure was bloated from heavy drinking. In 1959, he died at only 50, with a coroner noting he had the body of an 80-year-old. His life stands as a cautionary tale. Incredible talent, overshadowed by unbridled indulgence. Few stories are as bittersweet as Judy Garland's.
You know how difficult it is to be. Well, why didn't they think of that before they, took me out the first time?
Long before she was old enough to legally drink, MGM had her on a relentless cycle of stimulants and sleeping pills, a practice studios used to keep young performers razor-sharp and ever-ready. As she matured, Judy leaned on champagne and barbiturates to cope with crippling anxiety and unstoppable schedules. Audiences saw a radiant star belting over the rainbow. Backstage, she trembled from the next dose or the next drink. Children like Liza Minnelli found her passed out at home, and a string of hospitalizations followed. Her final days were as tragic as they were iconic. In 1969, she died from an overdose at just 47, with autopsy reports citing her damaged liver, the silent witness to years of abused substances. This Dorothy never truly found her way home, leaving behind a legacy that still aches with unfulfilled longing.
Old? Yes. Burned out? Certainly. But I can tell you, the memories are still there.
Spencer Tracy ranks among Hollywood's greatest actors, but he carried a profound darkness in private. He was devoutly Catholic, guilt-stricken over his separation from wife Louise, yet deeply in love with Katharine Hepburn. That internal war fueled epic drinking binges, isolating himself in hotel rooms for days once a film wrapped. MGM hushed up his raucous escapades, often paying off hotel managers. Hepburn became his off-screen caretaker, nursing him back from near-fatal benders. While filming his last project, Guess who's coming to dinner? Tracy was so frail that no insurance company would cover him. Hepburn and director Stanley Kramer had to put their salaries on the line. He died just 17 days after shooting Wrapped. Though the public saw a composed gentleman, the real Tracy was haunted by a lifelong battle with alcohol.
Years and years and years, and if you're not a very strong person physically, you're going to have to need something to, get you on that set in the morning.
Voted one of the greatest actresses in Hollywood history, Bette Davis was known for her piercing eyes, razor-sharp wit, and a no-nonsense persona. What many didn't realize was that along with chain-smoking, Davis battled a long, quiet struggle with alcohol. Behind the scenes of her legendary roles, Jezebel, All About Eve, and many others, Davis reportedly sipped whiskey or brandy to combat stage fright and cope with fierce industry pressures. Ever the professional, she maintained discipline on set, but her volatile temper sometimes flared after a few drinks, prompting stories of feuds with directors and co-stars. As she aged, her health suffered from the lethal combination of tobacco and spirits, leading to multiple strokes. Bette Davis, however, maintained her iron will almost to the end, quipping, "Old age ain't no place for sissies." She passed away in 1989 at 81, her legacy still shimmering with the brilliance of her performances, and a reminder that behind every tough exterior can lie a fragile heart. When it came to flamboyance, Tallulah Bankhead reigned supreme.
Well, now let me see. If I may be wildly optimistic, I would say that I was the, divinely impossible.
She'd say with a wink, "Darling, alcohol has preserved my body. Formaldehyde couldn't do it better." Known for her deep, raspy voice and brazenly wild antics, she turned her daily bourbon habit into a scandalous brand. Yet beneath the bravado, Bankhead battled deep insecurities and depression. As the offers dried up, she drank more, sometimes starting before breakfast. Legendary house parties featured bathtubs filled with champagne. By the 1950s, her unpredictable behavior on live TV turned heads for all the wrong reasons. In 1968, pneumonia claimed her life at 66, with her final words rumored to be codeine bourbon. Even in death, she never broke character, leaving behind a cautionary note on how comedic flair can mask a deep personal pain. He was called the Great Profile, but John Barrymore's legendary good looks succumbed to one of Hollywood's most infamous drinking habits.
The gentlemen from the newsreel have informed me that they wish to see the Barrymore profile.
He soared during the silent era and was hailed as the finest Hamlet of his generation, until alcohol took center stage. Studios hired babysitters to keep Barrymore from vanishing on multi-day binges, and rumors claim he smuggled liquor onto sets in hollowed-out scripts. Memory issues forced reliance on cue cards, and directors would shoot around his inebriation. Barrymore died in 1942 at 60, with stories swirling, likely exaggerated, about friends sneaking his corpse out for one last drink. True or not, it perfectly echoes how his life blended tragedy and dark comedy into a single swirling cocktail. Veronica Lake was the platinum blonde darling of 1940s noir films.
When I say I left, it was not out of bitterness. It was not cynicism. I guess I had a career in reverse. I was a star first and learned to live afterwards.
That seductive hair over one eye, labeled the peekaboo style, made her a box office sensation. But behind that glamorous image lurked stage fright so severe, she often numbed herself with drinks during lunch breaks. By 1948, her unpredictability and constant inebriation made her nearly unhireable. Swallowed by debts, divorces, and a reputation for being difficult, she vanished from the limelight. In 1962, a reporter found her tending bar in New York, an ex-movie goddess just trying to get by. She died in 1973 from complications of alcoholism at 50. Although her star once lit up Tinseltown, her final chapters proved how even the brightest lights can be dimmed by a relentless addiction.
Thank God I never have to live through that again. But I never have to live up through those terrible years of postularity, of idiocy, I wouldn't like to go through that time again.
With a commanding Welsh voice and undeniable screen presence, Richard Burton should have been a Shakespearean giant. Instead, tabloids fixated on his volcanic marriage to Elizabeth Taylor and the near-legendary amounts of alcohol he consumed. Some say multiple bottles of vodka every single day during shoots. Their fiery romance was fueled by round-the-clock boozing. Crew members from Cleopatra recalled how Burton had to have a morning vodka just to steady his hands. Despite piling up 7 Oscar nominations, his unchecked drinking left him physically ravaged by the 1970s. By the time he died in 1984 at 58, cirrhosis had claimed him. In diaries published after his death, Burton admitted, "I'd rather booze than act," a chilling statement from a man whose talent was as immense as his appetite for excess.
I just wanted to go to sleep. I was hurting so bad inside.
Known as the blonde bombshell, Betty Hutton was Paramount's top star of the mid-1940s, her boundless energy lighting up musicals like Annie, Get Your Gun. But behind that radiant smile, she carried the scars of a rough childhood, an alcoholic father who walked out, and a fear she'd never measure up. Fueled by stage anxiety, Hutton turned to alcohol and pills. After a feud with Paramount in 1952, she found herself blacklisted, divorces piled up, finances sank, and her addiction spiraled further. In a surprising twist, she eventually was found working as a cook in a Catholic rectory, crediting her sobriety to faith and a priest's guidance. Though she reclaimed some dignity late in life, Betty Hutton remains a sobering example of how quickly Hollywood can forget when addiction takes hold.
I gained the attention of people because I was supposed to be a tough guy, because I shot people and killed people.
The whole world is 3 drinks behind, joked Humphrey Bogart, as though he aimed to stay permanently ahead. Unlike many of his peers, Bogart often maintained a functioning alcoholism, ensuring he rarely missed call times, though he started each morning with a stiff whiskey or 2. Bogart's drinking crew, dubbed the Holmby Hills Rat Pack, a precursor to Sinatra's more famous group, would party till dawn, matching each other glass for glass. Yet directors insisted he always knew his lines the next day. That consistency didn't save him in the end. In 1956, Bogart was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, accelerated by years of heavy smoking and drinking. He died at 57. Today, he endures as the epitome of the hard-drinking tough guy, both an icon of Hollywood style and a caution about its hidden costs.
Me? Sure, I'm decent.
They called her the Love Goddess, but Rita Hayworth struggled with crippling shyness off-screen. Early in her career, studios encouraged her to have a drink before filming complicated dance scenes, planting the seeds of what would become a full-blown dependency. After a series of high-profile relationships, Orson Welles, Prince Ali Khan, her heartbreak mounted, and so did her drinking. By the 1960s, her forgetfulness and erratic moods raised eyebrows on set. What nobody realized, Hayworth suffered from early-onset Alzheimer's, which went undiagnosed for years. When she passed in 1987, many were stunned by how drastically her final years contrasted her vibrant image. Her story underscores how misunderstood and multifaceted addiction can be, especially for an icon who seemed to personify glamour.
Action, please.
Ah, the French. Champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul Masson.
Orson Welles revolutionized cinema with Citizen Kane at just 25. His genius seemed boundless, writing, directing, acting, and even pioneering new radio techniques. But with brilliance often comes chaos, and for Welles, that manifested in heavy drinking and overeating. Whether drowning creative frustrations in a bottle of champagne or indulging in endless red wine, Welles's appetite for excess was as grand as his cinematic visions. Colleagues recalled him nursing brandy on set, sometimes postponing scenes until he found the right creative spirit. By middle age, Welles's bulk and health visibly declined. Despite sporadic triumphs, including iconic commercials where he famously insisted, "We will serve no wine before it's time," his personal battles overshadowed his later career. He died in 1985 at 70, never quite recapturing that early cinematic fire. A towering figure in Hollywood history, Welles reminds us that a brilliant mind can still falter under the weight of addiction.
Now, you were in the film My Favorite Year. You played Alan Swan, obviously, a man, a hellraiser, a guy who drank and enjoyed a good time. Is there anything like that in your background that would help you execute that role?
Oh, I had a little rehearsal for a few years, yeah.
Finally, we arrive at Peter O'Toole, whose Olympic drinking years after Lawrence of Arabia nearly cost him his life. Alongside fellow titans Richard Burton and Richard Harris, O'Toole indulged in epic nights that London bartenders still whisper about. He once claimed to have finished 50 pints in a single session. A near-fatal stomach illness in the late 1970s forced surgeons to remove parts of his intestine, warning him another drink might kill him. Unlike many on our list, O'Toole heeded the call. He gave up alcohol cold turkey in 1975. What followed was a triumphant career resurgence, culminating in 8 Oscar nominations. He never won, but his brilliant performances late in life proved you can find redemption. In reflecting on his past, he simply said, "I did quite enjoy those days until I woke up in Corsica." These 15 legends were the envy of America. Handsome, talented, beloved. Yet behind the scenes, they grappled with addiction in an era when studios helped conceal or even enable their behaviors. Some, like W.C. Fields or Errol Flynn, left behind wild anecdotes of comedic or swashbuckling drunkenness. Others, like Judy Garland or Veronica Lake, hid painful truths beneath the bright studio lights. Which star's story hit you the hardest? Was it Judy Garland's heartbreaking spiral or Peter O'Toole's surprising road to redemption? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your memories and reflections. If you're captivated by these deeply personal old Hollywood revelations, subscribe for more nostalgic deep dives. And remember, no matter how bright the spotlight, everyone is human. Sometimes the hardest battles happen far from the public eye. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.